Okay, every time the state announces a new set of rules, our inbox is flooded with your questions. So let's verify some answers. Our first question is from Deborah. She asks, indoor gym patrons must now wear masks when working out. Does this carry over to indoor sport courts? For example, tennis, pickleball, basketball, volleyball, racquetball, etc. All right, so according to the Oregon Health Authority, yes, face coverings, which could be a mask, a covering, or a face shield, must be worn in indoor sports courts and outdoor sports courts when you cannot maintain that 6 feet of social distance. So we can verify, yes, you would have to wear a mask playing pickleball, racquetball, tennis, any place where you can't maintain, again, the 6 feet of distance. All right, our next question is from April. She says, as a customer riding TriMet public transit system, I have noticed that drivers do not enforce mask coverings to riders refusing to wear masks. Can service be denied to these individuals just as service can be denied by a business? Great question, two-part answer here. So according to OHA, transit drivers can and should refuse service or find an alternative form of transportation for riders who won't wear a mask. And they outlined in their guidelines, they said those riders should not be allowed on the bus. However, I reached out to TriMet. They told me their drivers will not be enforcing this because it could put them in a tense situation. So instead, drivers will offer a mask to riders who don't have one. But again, they will not be refusing service. So that's why I said it's a two-parter. So yes, they could refuse service, but according to TriMet, they're not going to do that. All right, our last question is from Dee. She said, could you please verify if it is a state of Oregon COVID health regulation to not allow handheld blow dryers to be used in beauty salons in Clackamas County? All right, this was the first time we got that question. I was interested in the answer as well. I checked with the governor's office on this, OHA and the county, and we can verify that no, handheld dryers there's nothing in the regulations that say that they cannot be used in any beauty salon in Clackamas County. Do you have a question? Let us know. We will do our best to get you an answer. All you have to do is send us an email at verify@kgw.com.